Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Let's jump right in. It's been a busy week, a busy weekend. A lot of stuff. We told early last week there'd be just a lot going on for May when you start looking at Arkansas Razorbacks basketball. Pro Hogs, that's part of your branding for your program, all the way up to Calipari being in the 501 and talking to fans, talking to media. We've had a lot of segments kind of covering all of these things as I've gone along and been at some of these places for some of these things. JJ Andrews on Thursday makes his a commitment announcement to Arkansas class of 2026, the first in John Calipari's. What's up, Kevin? Hey, Dylan Henson. Thank you. It's all good. Oh, what's up, man? Hope all is well. That JJ Andrews gets Calipari in his third recruiting cycle. How weird does that sound? At Arkansas, he's been here just over a year, but that's how it works. Class of 2026, and man, he's proven the point of Cal's wisdom this weekend. I was there in Memphis with Cal, Chin Coleman, the two staffers from Arkansas, Chuck Martin, was getting ready to take off on a flight and reached out and told me he was heading to Council Bluffs, Iowa, to Arkansas assistant coach to evaluate and go see Arkansas's recruits on the Adidas 3SSB circuit. The same players I watched a couple of weeks ago down in Texas. So I've had the chance now between Adidas 3SSB and this first live eval session where I spent it on the Nike EYBL session in Memphis to see all these players. But Arkansas fanned out to check things out. Karter Knox, yeah, I've got some Karter Knox intel for you. We're about to jump into. So I'm going to I want you to connect some dots here. I want you to connect some dots here so that you're able to take my transitions from what I talk about from one thing to the other and kind of figure out where I got the info from. Basically being in Memphis, got there Friday, saw all the games with the Arkansas Targets on Friday, the all day Saturday, all night Saturday. That was the thing. Had to get out of there sooner than I wanted to. Had to get back to Little Rock for some family stuff. So I have not had a chance yet to watch some of the games that are either have been played or going on now. And I'm going to have to go back and watch the replays on live stream. I'll watch them from start to finish. But I've seen most all the games live over the last few days. And, I was there on the same courts where John Calipari and Chin Coleman were pulling up to because, we know who their Arkansas recruits are. We know who they're really focused on. They watch some other players that they, I won't just say casually because it can start casually and the next thing you know, they start to recruit somebody. But the ones they've really dialed in on and been on for a while, ones we've reported on, they were front and center. They did a really good job of being where they were supposed to be. And that's something that I can't say for every staff that preceded them. I mean, really any staff in recent memory that preceded them. So take that for what it's worth. But Calipari, man, you see the gravity of people, fans, other coaches. Everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants to talk to him. There's a lot of great coaches out there. I mean, I see Bill Self out there every year. Some of the names, Danny Hurley, big name in college basketball, net coaching now. A lot of these guys, and you just don't see the gravity that Calipari brings with people. I've never seen anything like it. And to see it in person, it's just wild. Second year in a row. Remember the first live eval session last year was on the Adidas circuit down in Texas. That's where he started. And I was there for that circuit. So the Friday, the first day, that's where Calipari started out. His first live eval session ever at Arkansas. And so, Chin Coleman, Calipari here through the weekend. I'm having conversations both days with the Arkansas staff that's represented, little chats, talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting stuff going on outside of just players that they're looking at over there. So got some good stuff, in addition to what my own eyes see in terms of evaluating players, what I always do, what these prospects look like, not just in terms of stats or it's every little thing, their body language on the bench, what they do off the court, interacting with teammates, the top player in the country, for example, Tyron Stokes, after his team lost last night to Team Takeover, 3 Arkansas recruits on the court. He's on the bench. He comes back to the bench and's cleaning up all after his teammates. He's the one guy over there picking up cups, the trash around it. He bristled a little bit at the media out there, but at the same time, the guys out there just doing stuff, serving up stuff that you look at it and go, okay, an interesting dude, Tyron Stokes. We're going to talk about all these guys, but let's transition. Let's transition real quick to what I want to give the intel on Karter Knox that I have. So I can tell you this: Arkansas has not been informed by Karter Knox that he's returning. Do not confuse that with every NBA draft scout I've talked about have brought that intel here. They don't even think that they don't see that he's going to be someone who stays in the draft. They didn't even give me a draft range. You're seeing mock draft updates every day. Jonathan Wasserman, who we've talked about for years with Bleacher Report, he's one of the ones I really respect, updated his mock today. Had a Duke Thero, good for him, selected going 33rd, early second round. That's going to be good guaranteed money for a Duke. No Karter Knox, undrafted. Most people think he's coming back. Arkansas staff believes he's coming back. They couldn't put him in that retention video they did because he just moments before they let it, he put out his announcement that he was going to test the waters and leave open his eligibility for college. And we knew this was mostly about feedback. But Calipari's talking about, and that staff talks about, they're happy with the 10 they have. Well, that counts Karter Knox coming back. They believe he's coming back. They don't have any reason to think he's not. One of the things I can tell you is, and we talked about this a few segments ago when we were talking about the live eval period that was coming up, because we're technically in a quiet period for a couple of months, I think till the end of June. But there are exceptions for live evaluation. And it wasn't just this first high school grassroots live eval session that's playing out this weekend and wrapping up today. It was also the NBA draft combine. College coaches could go there. And it was kind of quiet. I assumed Arkansas would have a staff member there. Well, Chin Coleman was there all week with Karter. So take my word for it when I tell you that Arkansas staff has not heard directly from him that he's coming back, that it's good source information. Hopefully you connect some dots there. That doesn't mean that he's not coming back. It doesn't mean that they're worried that he's not coming back. It doesn't mean that they don't believe that he's coming back. All signs point to that he's coming back to school. Now it's a matter of, does he have an opportunity like Devo Davis did? Remember, we reported with you guys a full month while he was in the draft process, and we learned that he was going to have a workout with the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think I named the team. I just said he had an NBA workout coming out, and as it got closer, I went ahead and dropped that information. And then he withdrew at the last minute. But we always told you he's coming back. I had source information he's coming back. This is really the same thing. He just hasn't officially told the staff yet. Who cares? No one believes that he's not coming back. Now, does it remain true that all it takes is one team to persuade him to stay in with some kind of promise that's good enough for him? Of course. Does he get a chance building off of what he's done in pro days last week, including and the combine and some of the things, that some teams will bring him in and kick the tires and give him that opportunity? And maybe they're doing that because whether they are ready to, flip a switch and make a promise now, maybe next year, those kind of things. I mean, so let's see what happens. I don't think the staff is trying to corner him into a date. May 28th, they'll get here soon enough, right? I mean, it's about a week. There's no rush on this, especially for a staff that's not talking about making any major additions right now, and you got other players in there in that process, guys like Darion Williams, Yaxel Lendenborg. We mentioned guys like PJ Haggerty, Jameer Watkins. We've talked about all these names, guys that have stay or go decisions. Some of those guys will probably get good draft deals. Some of them are probably going to peel back, but Arkansas doesn't seem aggressive about any of that. If they lost Karter Knox, they would, but I think they feel supremely confident about it. But technically, as of this weekend, they had not gotten word from him that, hey, I'm officially coming back, and it's just a matter of making the public announcement. Hadn't happened yet. They're not worried about it. I promise you that. All right, we're almost 10 minutes in, 9.5 minutes in. Just wanted to throw that out there for those of you wondering, has he already made his decision, and it's just a matter of, I think the decision has always been he's coming back to Arkansas, going to give himself a chance to get feedback. And if something great happens and he blows away the world, what has Calipari always done? He supported his players and told them when it's time to go. He promotes that. Why not let him have that process? It's not going to be earth-shattering news. Does it matter that he hasn't officially told the staff yet? No, it doesn't matter. He's coming back. So anyway, it's an easy, to me, this is a thing where, until we hear it publicly, there's going to be some nervousness. I get that. I'm not trying to scold anybody for saying, why are you so confident? Well, you're right. I'm never absolute about anything or 100%. So, I'm probably hovering around 99% that he comes back right now, though. And again, love your shows, Kevin. Thank you. Is that another Kevin? Well, we share a first name, Kevin Ball. Thank you. So that's the news there. Boogie Flynn, by the way, it came out today. Multiple reports out. There were rumors floating around at Nike EYBL over the weekend that he was already in Gainesville. But they were just, as far as I knew, they were rumors. I was here, talking to other reporters, assistant coaches. I've made a lot of good coaching friends. Some of them, head coaches, assistant coaches, but it's all the smiles, the handshakes, the little chats, some of the info I get, some of the stuff I'll have to swallow and sit on for a while and maybe regurgitate later with the timing's right. Some of it's really interesting. But I will say this, the Boogie Flynn rumors weren't unbelievable. It felt like that's probably true. Well, he's to take an official visit, I guess, beginning tomorrow. You saw different reports. He's set to take a visit to Florida this week. I think John Rothstein's the only one I've seen that actually gave a day stamp, and said Monday. Official visit starts, so that's tomorrow. Boogie Flynn, what did we hear? We heard Florida. My NBA draft contacts and sources that were, the scouts that were at the combine were telling me, when he was withdrawing, man, it's wildfire over here with coaches that are here, all the folks that are here, that it's going to be Florida. That's the word everybody's hearing. Mike Miller, his agent, was, played at Florida. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of stuff we've already talked about. A lot of stuff we've already talked about in terms of the pros and cons to come back to Arkansas. Arkansas has needs that he would somewhat check, but they also have a logjam at the one spot with guys that were brought in to be alpha lead guards. So does 3 really make sense where he can go somewhere, get as good, if not better, NIL money? Not saying that Arkansas can't be number 1 in NIL money, but remember, they've chosen not to get into crazy stuff where it goes beyond what they see as the value in one player and the overall picture for their roster construction and getting everybody to fit and mesh. So it's a weird dynamic. You hate to see it if you're an Arkansas fan, especially to a fellow SEC school, especially to a school that's pretty much, if you had any questions, who was the second best program in the SEC in basketball outside of Kentucky, if you didn't think it was Florida and you thought it was Arkansas, Florida kind of answered that in the NCAA tournament by winning its 3rd natty. Boogie, you go in there is like pouring salt in the wound, but that's, and you've heard Kansas. I've heard Kansas thrown around for him and, some other stuff. But Arkansas seems unlikely. We've said that. I'm just going to keep with that. Exited or excited? Yeah, both. Once Karter Knox exits the NBA draft process, you'll all be more excited officially. So that's kind of where things are with Boogie. Not really much different other than, well, what we were hearing about Florida. It seems valid now. He's, the word's out, he's going to visit, and it starts tomorrow. He may already be in Gainesville from the stuff I was hearing. So that's kind of cool. If you're a Florida fan, not kind of cool for those things to be affirmed if you're an Arkansas fan. I think, and I keep saying this, I think a guy like Darius Acuff, he's got to prove it, but he looks to me like a guy that if you have a great season and he becomes the kind of player that I can see he can be, this is a guy that could be an all SEC kind of guy, and he leads your team in scoring. What was Boogie Flynn doing before he got hurt? Similar stuff, second or first in scoring, led the team in assists, one of the leaders in the SEC in assists, top assist to turnover ratio in not only the league, but among freshmen in college basketball. And, had his share of steals, one of the leaders on the team in gathering steals, probably a little better defensively than a lot of people gave him credit for. Arkansas had a lot of problems, getting into league play, and it wasn't just all on him. And he did suffer an injury midway through that 0-5 start before they shut him down, but he was on that path. Well, Acuff might be on that path. How many of those guys do you feel like can be on a path like that when you crowd the backcourt? And I know people want to go back to the examples at Kentucky 2 years ago when they had, several freshmen, DJ Wagner, Reed Shepard, and Rob Dillingham. And you had Antonio Gates as your 2-3 who could also, you could run some offense through. And they did through all those guys. I remember the Fayetteville game. Arkansas lost twice that year. It was Eric Patrick Milsman, Swan Song as head hog, and they played twice. In both games, Arkansas lost. The game in Fayetteville was the first game, and it was a low-scoring, grind-ass game. And Reed Sheppard had a huge second half. Not a great first half, but a huge second half. And they ran a lot of offense through him. And I talked about the very thing on one of these podcasts after the game. I asked about it. I asked Calipari about, or excuse me, either Calipari or Mulsman, one of the coaches in the post game, about that very thing about Reed Sheppard kind of taking that game over as a scorer and facilitator. It stood out in my mind. So that team ran offense through each one of those guys. Rob Dillon, you went to the game in Kentucky, and it was a high-octane game, scored in the hundreds, and Arkansas lost a close game there. Both of them were close. And they were running stuff at different junctures through Dillingham, through DJ, who had a really good game, through Sheppard, through Antonio Gates, or Antonio Reeves. So, yeah, it's been done, and it's been done under Calipari 2 years ago. But the big difference was you had one grinder, DJ, in there that really can't shoot from three. And the rest of those guys, when you don't have them on the ball, can play off the ball because they can catch and shoot. They can have a less is more game and make you pay. When you try to pick and choose defending the lead guard that's setting things up and the other guys are knocking them down. I don't know that those three in combination with a guy like Malik Thomas is enough in terms of guys that can do multiple things well to complement the other parts. And is it more of a, well, you're probably better off if they're not all on the court at the same time playing different roles. I don't fully know that I know that that's a fact. I just kind of think it is. It's the old Bill Maher thing. I don't know it for a fact. I just know it's true. I'm not quite there to knowing that it's true, but it's, it might be a truth. And that's how I look at that. And we've talked about that a lot. So Boogie, you want to see him at Florida and in the SEC? I mean, I don't, but I don't have a choice in it. And I think the plan was always for him to be a pro. It was what it looked like it was heading to. And that hasn't worked out. And to say that, well, Calipari should definitely drop whatever the plan was and go to another plan to keep him, I don't know that I agree with that. I think I agree more with Arkansas should have identified a floor spacing shooter, maybe out of the portal, whether that's a wing that gives you backcourt versatility or another guard that doesn't necessarily have to have a line share minutes, but can have a role, and you figure out how to chop up those backcourt minutes without taking too much away from some of the guys you retained and brought in, like Acuff and Malik Thomas. To me, that almost makes more sense, but they didn't do that either. Frontline depth, and if you decided to add one more, get Karter back, add one more. Again, you can't argue with that. But who knows what they're going to do? But Boogie Flynn feels like the least likely of some of these other options that might not even be really likely, but maybe a little more likely if the right thing fell into place. Yeah, Knox will be a Razorback. That's what I said. I went through it. No one believes he's not coming back. It's just he hasn't officially told the staff, which, what does that mean? Officially told the staff? I mean, if once it's official, word will be out everywhere, right? So, that's the thing there. But the staff, they're letting him have they're keeping tabs on it. They're not blind, out in the blind, not knowing. It's just a matter of formality. You want to say that he's, the idea is the staff already knows. Well, they don't know, right? They don't know officially from him or unofficially from him, word of mouth from him to them. So I saw the comment. I thought I'd jump right back in there. Boogie's a different thing. You're probably, it looks like you're getting Knox back, and it looks like Boogie's going elsewhere. I don't see, if I were putting a percentage, I'm trying to think of how to do this, or a scale of 1 to 10, let's do it that way, or a percentage, getting both Knox and Boogie back, kind of looking at it that way as a combo, as a parlay. I wouldn't put money on that parlay. I'm on the 3 on a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, which probably puts me down, 25%, 30%. You're saying, well, that's pretty good. The only way the reason I'm that high on it is because I feel almost certain, without saying absolute, on Karter coming back. And Arkansas's probably one of two or three options for Boogie, even as a kind of what looks like a non-option. But all it would take would be for Calipari and the staff and getting players on board to say, here's why we think this makes sense. If they had a change of heart or flipped a switch on that, then I would have to raise up the possibility. And so I don't know that they'll do that. It seems to me if if they haven't done that yet, with a few days to operate on this. Remember, this news came out on Tuesday, and he's already going to be taking a visit to Florida. It seems like to me the wheels are already in motion on something that's probably going to have a conclusion here really soon. It looks like Florida. So you just never know what could be worked in or figured out to maybe change that. So I can't 100% rule it out. I just don't think it's very likely. I think it's even less likely that Karter Knox stays in the draft, by the way. So there's that. That's what I'm kind of trying to say here and put numbers on. It was a little awkward. All right, so we've got all that out of the way. How about that, huh? How about that? Hey, I got some good news at the EYBL, Nike EYBL live eval session. First one of the spring and summer for D1 coaches to be out there. It was a who's who. The courts were crowded, especially for some of the top level guys that Calipari and Arkansas are recruiting. But one of those, Christian Collins, St. John Bosco, where Brandon McCoy Jr. plays, another five-star guard who didn't participate this weekend, and Taj Ariza. I mean, three five-star studs that are lined up to play there next year. Arkansas is recruiting all three, but Christian Collins, a 6'8" forward, who I got to see play multiple times in this event, and I put some of his highlights out. I interviewed him after a game on Saturday, and he told me, look, Cal just offered me. So we put that reporting out. He told me that Cal offered him and said that, Arkansas is a place he wants to visit. And I talked to him a little bit off screen when I wasn't recording. And this is a guy that Arkansas is making a priority. I can tell you that. Just a versatile 6'8" guy. He's a wiry build, but man, he plays tough. He's not afraid of physicality. He's got skill. He's got a really good floor IQ. He understands. One thing I noticed, he understands how to play on and off the ball, and his instincts to track the ball. He's kind of got a magnet to it. They always say, the ball likes energy. It does, and he's one of those guys. J.J. Andrews is very similar, but this is a guy that could slot as a 3-4 and thrive and be on the court with the J.J. Andrews. They're competing against each other. I think they did at 12:30. Again, I haven't had a chance to watch that. I had a long segment with Pig Trail Nation before I came on here. That'll be published a little bit later. And so I've spent some time prepping and doing some of this stuff, and I'm able to watch the final Sunday games. Again, I'm going to do that later. But Christian Collins is a monster, man. This guy is a really good player. Top 5 rated by some services already, a 5-star, again, class of 2026. And he gave me the news yesterday. I think I saw one or two other, I don't know, someone else around the same time I put it out that said Arkansas among the offers. That offer just came down, and they're prioritizing him. Taj Ariza, who also plays on his same AAU team, 17U team. Why not? Another player that Arkansas has been recruiting, another 6'8", versatile wing, more of a traditional 3 at his height. Sometimes not as active as you see Collins. Little ball watching sometimes, but man, he can stroke it. They put him at on the elbows and the high post, and kind of, guard brings it up, pitches to him, and then he turns on a pivot and makes decisions. Does he dribble out for a 3? Does he pass down? Does he try to work his way from there? So you see some good stuff from Taj Ariza. Christian Collins, a more locked in, active player, maybe at both ends, maybe a little bit more cerebral in how he handles the game. But Taj Ariza, he's got a real high floor IQ too. I think there's sometimes some hesitation that I noticed a little bit with a top 5 rated. If you look at the various services, these guys, both of them top 5 rated. Tyron Stokes and Jason Crow Jr. Stokes, the number 1 player, Jason Crow Jr., they both play for the Oakland Soldiers, 17U. It's the second consecutive year I've seen Stokes playing with that outfit when he was teamed last year with AJ DeBonsa. But again, Calipari and Chen Coleman courtside to see all these guys. So all the coverage I'm giving on their highlights, different things I'm seeing that I'm putting out on social media, Calipari's right there. He's seeing everything the same way. And part of the coaching thing, they're visiting with other coaches. They're checking they're having phone conversations, things that are going on. But a lot of it's just being seen. They want these recruits to know they were there. I always say that. That's a big part of it. Is Stokes going to reclassify? It doesn't look like it now, but he also said he wasn't going to go through spring and summer, and then he makes it's so funny, he makes a last minute decision to go ahead and play. This is the first live eval session, and one of the reporters who I know put that information out, and Stokes got mad and blocked him on social media. I was told he wasn't happy that the guy got information and put it out. Stokes is a different kind of cat. He's a hell of a player, man. The guy's an alpha. He backs it up. He's strong. He's skilled. He can play the 1, the 2, the 3. He's switchable on defense, can defend some frontline guys. He can dribble, set up a 3-point shot. He can catch and shoot. He can back you down. He's got a nice mid-post game. He can take you all the way to the rim and put you in it. He's great in transition. Stokes is he's the number 1 player in the class for a reason. I think it's worthy. He was the best talent I saw out there, and I saw some really good ones. J.J. Andrews, who we're going to talk about, arguably had the best weekend going into today's game, so I need to see it finish out. I saw 3 of the 4 games he played in. Starting slow start Thursday or Friday when we got there. J.J. Andrews, rough shooting first half, and absolutely had a monster second half. 17 of his 23 points. He finally got a 3. I recorded his first 3 of the weekend that he knocked down. A little shaky shooting, but he had such a strong second half that his overall field goal shooting ended up being 50%. He shot 72% in the first session for Nike. It wasn't live eval in Mesa, Arizona a few weeks ago. 72% overall from the field, 50% from 3, averaging roughly 20 points per game, over 4 rebounds, a couple of steals. But he had that 23-point game in front of Calipari first game out, and it helped his team separate and beat UPlay Canada by a pretty wide margin. Game 2 early Saturday was also a blowout, and he didn't play a ton in that game. He didn't play the fourth quarter really in that 23-point outburst because they led by so much against UPlay. So most of that damage was done in 3 quarters. And then that second game, I think he had 7 or 8 points, 1 field goal, some free throws. He didn't play a whole lot. It was just it wasn't, you weren't really judging him based on that. But the night game against Mocan Elite with other 5-stars like Jalen Montanati, who Arkansas has recruited and still keeps tabs on, 6'6" wing out of Owasso, Oklahoma. Calipari and Coleman courtside for that. And JJ went off, absolutely went off. His team winning by 18 points, 81-73. It was close for a while, but he was doing a little bit of everything. Got his 3-ball working, hit 3 or 4 threes on that one. His ability to score in transition obviously is always there. His slash game and just moving bodies out of his way, driving to the basket, putting in the torture chamber, putting him in the bully ball, put him in the cage match that they don't want to be in. Some of his little, dribble to a spot and pull up for a mid-range shot. He had a couple of those on the left side where he drove left and pulled up and knocked those down. He had a nice little acrobat move where he went baseline, caught maybe a little bit of an errant pass. He left his feet to corral it, got his footwork right and maneuvered around 2 guys and had a nice little lefty leg kick lay-in front of the rim. Finished through contact throughout the weekend. But that's that last game last night, game 3, 32 points in that win over Mocan. Unbelievable shooting night. Again, he was knocking down threes. 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Several of those were in transition where he got a defensive rebound, took 1 dribble, turned up court. Instead of taking those extra dribbles like a lot of 5-stars do, trying to decide what they want to do, he made the right play immediately. What do I always say about JJ? He makes every play he's involved in. His decision-making is about winning that play, not about setting himself up or making it or chasing something for him. It's about making the right play. And so a lot of his assists, those 7 assists, were in transition, just passing ahead over the defense because he had a teammate in scoring position. Some of those passes he made were just in the motion of the offense. I tweeted one of these out. Calipari just walked up to that Mocan game. He was going back and forth from that and the Oakland Soldiers and Team Takeover, where you had both Stokes, Jason Crow Jr., and Jordan Smith Jr. with Team Takeover. He's out of the Virginia, another top 5 rated 5-star guard who I got to catch all 3 of his games Friday through Saturday. And we'll talk about him as well. And Calipari and Coleman were there for those. Calipari had just walked up, and JJ just made the next pass to the open shooter. He could have forced a shot, but he passed it to the corner to a more open shooter, and got a better shot for his team, and he knocked it down. There was one of his dimes. So, defensively, he's just hard to deal with because he's got a high motor. He's constantly active and willing to give you physicality if you're not willing to bring it to him. And he's disruptive. He's constantly crashing the glass. He's built like a god. I mean, he's built. I mean, you could say he's already built like a college player. He's built like some guys in the NBA already. He's probably a legit, 6'5" or pushing it in shoes. We'll give him 6'6". He's probably 6'5", but has plus length. Maybe elite length. We need to see what those measurements are again at some point. But man, he's athletic. He's got quick. It's not just his decisions are quick, but he's got real quickness and some twitch to his game. And he likes to use a little crossover setup to get in his drive game. And then if he misses, he's quick off his feet. He's one of those pogo leapers after that first leaving his feet and comes back down. He's back on that ball and getting another second or third opportunity. He does the same when it's not his drive or, kind of coming in and crashing in off someone else's miss. And he tries to put folks in the rim, whether he's successful or not. He's got that kind of confidence, and sometimes he is. So J.J. Andrews, really, everything I saw was outstanding from him. I mentioned Tyron Stokes, just can do everything, really solid at both ends, strong kid. Jason Crow Jr. is an interesting one. Arkansas is in pursuit of him. He may end up visiting Arkansas as well. Tyron Stokes, reports came out recently. We were given the intel that Arkansas would be among 3 teams that would also get visits after he'd visited Louisville last year. That's where he's from. And recently visited, I think it was Kansas. We said Arkansas and Kentucky would be two out of 3 more he would likely take. And then he did set up a Kentucky visit. And it was mentioned Arkansas, Oregon, and Gonzaga would also be getting visits. So we expect Arkansas to get a visit. And again, his teammate at Team Why Not, Jason Crow Jr., watched him score 37 points in one game this weekend. But he's one of those guys, he's kind of built like a B.J. Young, if you remember him, kind of thin, 6'2", 6'3". But, he's got some real polished skill in his 3-point setup game, drives to the basket. He also a really good passer, just a high floor IQ kind of guy. Most of these 5-star guys now, when you look at them, it's not just about their athletic traits and their size and their length and those things. He's got, for a 6'3" guy, he's got good athleticism and good measurables. But it's also about their understanding of how to play. And you do see guys sometimes getting these little moments and these little stretches where they're trying to prove something, mano a mano. But for the most part, these players I watched this weekend were playing the right way. That was encouraging. This is a smart at the top 2026 class. I can say that just based on my observations. But Crow in that 37-point game was getting it everywhere. There was one transition play right in front of me on the baseline, right in front of Calipari and Chin Coleman, who Calipari had moved a few feet from wherever he was just a few feet to my right. And then someone brought out an extra chair on Coach's row for him and Chin to sit together, and they moved literally right in front of me at that same baseline. And so out in transition, Jason Crow throws a lob for Stokes. I tweeted this highlight out. He smashed that and right below was Calipari and Chin Coleman. You could see the look on their faces like, yeah, that's pretty nice. You'd love to get both of those guys. And we know Calipari's talking about taking 4 freshmen. So you got J.J. Andrews off the board. You got some really spoils of riches here when you look at who Arkansas is pursuing. And we've gone through some of those names. We haven't talked yet about Jordan Smith Jr., who looks like an NFL safety the way he's built. Broad, muscled up shoulders, good arm length, powerful legs, but he's not stiff. He's not stiff. You talk about quick twitch. He's not the most polished skill guy, but he's skilled enough. He's explosive. His anticipation defensively. I tweeted out a highlight where he had 3 deflections and 1 highlight. just battling and reading what the situation was and putting himself in position to be disruptive. He's physical. He challenges everybody. He's an electric dunker. He had a 25-point game against the Oakland Soldiers in that big matchup, which had more fans, more people crowded around it than any of them. Is Stokes going to reclassify again? I don't think so. When he was going through the thing of, not going to play spring and summer, and then he decided to. I know someone asked about that, and I went off topic or on topic. We didn't answer that part of the question. Right now, it doesn't look like he will. I guess he could change his mind because he's changed his mind about other things. So who knows? I guess he could change his mind about visiting Arkansas. We'll see what happens. But he's a really special player. And some of these other guys are as well. I like the upside and ceiling for a guy like Christian Collins. J.J. Andrews, as he continues to add skill, a lot of his high percentage shooting is based on that getting to the basket game. And still a little bit up and down with a three-point shooting, but he had some really nice catch and shoot threes against Mocan Elite, and that was part of that 32-point game. And you see him begin to add more and more. I think the bigger overall picture with JJ is he's just a winner, and he impacts winning plays, which wins games. And he takes it to heart. It matters to him. It's not by accident, and he's got the physical stuff to back up and, and the athleticism and along with all that know-how. Playing hard and playing determined to win is a skill also. When we talk skill, we're always talking about handles or shooting. But some of this other stuff, they're considered skills too when you're building a player, when you're looking at how a player builds himself. And so JJ, to me, is arguably as good as anybody in terms of big performance stuff and what he was showing out there as anybody this weekend. There will be some folks that maybe come out and say he was the player of the weekend. Let's see what his Sunday results were. I really think that's possible. We said this on the Thursday the post-commitment pod that I did, that he's underrated. He was a 5-star. ESPN had him 15th. They bumped him down to 22nd, 4-star. Some of the other services have him down a little lower than that. It just blew my mind. He's proven it over and over again. Look at the Peach Jam title, the first one ever for Brad Bill Elite last year. Technically, Mika Miernan got the MVP for that title game. But if you look at the lead up to that, Miernan was going off and building his resume, but so was JJ. I would argue in some of those games, JJ was the best player on that team. The guy's a 5-star. The fact that some of the services don't have him there now is a shame. It happened to Moses Moody. That was the comparison I made the other day. If you remember, if you saw it, I was like, before we saw what he did this weekend, and going back to what he did in Mesa, Arizona, just for whatever reason, sometimes these things happen and they don't really make sense based on what the eye test tells you and what you're seeing. If he was more of a polished kind of guy that, relative to some of these other guys that they're in love with, I guess that's the justification. I really don't understand it. And I don't think they understand it either, because if they did, they'd see it more like I do. And I think he'll rise in the recruiting rankings based on even just this weekend. And maybe as the spring and summer continues to play out, he'll continue to prove it. So at some point, I expect that. All right, we're nearly 40 minutes in. We're not going to go a whole lot longer other than how about the idea that Mika Miernan, if he did reclass, that, talking to some of the other reporters out there, there's still this idea that he just might do it. And how could Arkansas play that? Especially if, you say, hey, did you like playing with JJ, where you get a chance to do that again, whether you reclass or not. There's more than one way to approach that, I guess, and see how that goes. You'd think maybe there's a chance if he reclasses, you could have him for 2 years and he would get to cut his teeth in year one and be a depth piece and see how that goes. And then come back and be one of your feature guys and team up with JJ again. You had success with it on the highest level of spring and summer grassroots and Peach Jam. So, we'll see where that goes. I think the biggest thing I think what matters here to me is when I start looking at these guys, if I were to rank the performances, I would have, just based on everything I see in Stokes and what he does and can do, he's the number one player in the country. I believe that. And I would say, you could throw it's a coin toss between him or JJ is the best performer I saw consistently through the weekend. I think it's a coin toss there. I think Christian Collins is a guy that really captivated me with some of the stuff I saw from him in both ends, and just him reading the situation, off ball movement, what his decisions on the ball, his finishing some and ones through some heavy contact for a slender 6'8" guy. Just his belief in himself and the way that he approached everything, and at both ends, again, I really, really liked him. And again, Jordan Smith Jr., he's just a dog. There's some Robert Shepard toughness. Remember Robert Shepard, for those of you that, I mean, just a tough dog defender, but powerfully built and quick. Remember how quick Robert Shepard was? This guy's got real quickness and burst. Is he as polished as guys like Jason Crow Jr.? It's just a different kind of player. It's not the same thing. I'd say no, but man, he's capable, but he wasn't making the game about himself either on offense. He was deferring a lot to teammates, making the right play. Team takeover, they do a really good job. It's one of the best, consistently one of the best teams in that Nike EYBL, which is the best of all the circuits. And they're well coached, which if you could say that about spring and summer grassroots, they're really well coached and their guys play right. And that was certainly him. And he's a guy that said he's going to visit both Arkansas and Kentucky after Peach Jam. The plan was, and I was green lighted to get an interview with him, but the caveat was, once I got there, was he wasn't doing any media until Sunday. Well, turns out I got pulled back to Little Rock, so I didn't get to interview Jordan Smith Jr. But great kid. Most of these young men in the interactions with me or other media, and parents coming up asking if you'll interview their kids and different things. I mean, it's a lot of fun to be out there, but I saw a lot of positive, and I saw a lot of really good traits with these high-level guys that Arkansas is pursuing. Another 5-star player from the class of 2027. Some services have him ranked in the top 3. I think most of them do. C.J. Rosser out of North Carolina, Calipari and Coleman pulled up courtside to watch him play. The Ratliff twins, who Arkansas went out to see at Archbishop Stepinac, 6'11", 7-footers. Theo Ratliff, former NBA All-Pro and defensive player, top-notch defender, rim protector. It's his sons with PSA Cardinals. They did not play. They were in street clothes at the games I was at, but they're with their team and huddled up and engaged. But, they're, again, they look the height, 6'10", 6'11", 7-foot. Thinly built guys. They're probably more skilled from what I've heard and what I've seen in highlights than their dad with some guard stuff. But let's keep an eye on those two, class of 2026. There's some other guys that Calipari was there to look at, but when we go right back down the list, again, it's Stokes and JJ. You could say at this event 1A, Christian Collins right there, Jordan Smith Jr., Jason Crow Jr., and then I would probably go, kind of in that group that Arkansas, has recruited as Taj Ariza. I'd kind of, he did some really good stuff. I would just kind of lump those guys ahead of him in terms of being fully locked in, bringing their stuff to the table to show why they're 5 stars consistently through each stretch of the game. And so, not that they were all perfect and didn't have their stretches where the shot wouldn't fall or things like that, but that's kind of how I rank it based on just the performances this weekend. All right, nearly 45 minutes in. I'm going to wrap it up, sign off now. Thank you for joining on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's been a busy week. I'm about to strap in now. This Oklahoma City-Denver game has already started probably, and I wanted to jump on here at least and get this done before I even put all my attention on that. That's really where my busyness started on Tuesday, getting out of the 501 and going to OKC and covering that NBA Game 5. It was what a classic game it was and classic performances. Denver goes home and a couple of days later and wins game 6, and now it's down to game apiece. Back in OKC, I'm tired. So as much as I wish I was there, I'm glad I'm not there. It's as weird as that sounds. But thank you again. I'm Kevin McPherson. Please hit subscribe, like, and share. And just remember, the best substitute for fake hustle is real hustle. At some point, it's not about ego. It's about just doing the work. It's about the ego of putting the best light on basketball, especially if you're coming to Arkansas. 360 degrees of it, and owning what you earn, not owning what someone else earned. because eventually that dog will come back and bite you. Signing off. Until next time, take care. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you soon.